When the stranger got an answer wrong, he would press a button that would shock them, and this was all part of an experiment. Each time this happened, the shock got stronger, until the stranger screamed and begged to stop. But a man in a lab coat tells you to keep going, so you do. Even when you think the stranger has collapsed on the floor in pain, you keep listening to the man in the lab coat. Now, what you don't know is that the shocks actually aren't real, and the stranger is an actor. You are actually the real test subject. You see, despite the cries, you keep going, even to the point of possibly killing the person, just because an authority figure in a lab coat told you to. And this experiment was actually done in the 60s, proving how far ordinary people will go when we think we're just following orders. He read each answer out loud, and when he reached the correct one, someone in the crowd coughed. He would then choose that answer, and it looked like he guessed right every time. Finally, he won the grand prize. But when the producers rewatched the footage, they noticed it was always the same audience member coughing, and this only happened on the correct answers. You see, the person coughing was actually his wife, and with another man's help, she coughed the right answers to her husband on stage. All three were found guilty, and even though he technically won, the prize money was never paid. They drop ice cubes onto the hot grill. Then they flip them quickly, brushing on spicy sauce and dusting them with cumin and chili flakes. The ice pops and hisses as it melts, but the goal isn't to cook it, just to coat it in the smoky flavor. And these spicy cubes have become a delicacy for tourists. Now, some say it's a traditional dish, claiming it's been around forever, but it's actually just a stunt snack designed for clicks and views. He really had to pee at the royal banquet, and his bladder steadily kept filling as he drank more wine. But back then, standing up to pee was seen as extremely rude. So he stayed seated to be polite. When the dinner finally ended, he rushed to the bathroom, but nothing happened. You see, his bladder swelled up so much that it tore open, flooding his body with pee. He survived in agony for 11 days until his organs shut down one by one. He jumped into the freezing water as the Titanic sank beneath him, and he watched his father get crushed by a falling funnel. When rescuers pulled him on board, his legs were frozen. Doctors told him both would need to be amputated, but he refused, saying he needed them to play tennis. Then he forced himself to walk until blood returned to his limbs. A few months later, he was back on the court, and 12 years after that, he won an Olympic medal. The fake wound is glued onto the actor's skin with a tiny tube hidden underneath. This is connected to a handheld pump filled with fake blood. When the lever is pressed, the blood spurts from the wound. And for more serious injuries, a tube is filled with compressed air. When it's released, it pushes the red liquid out of the wound all at once, making it look like a giant burst of blood. As she walked to the plane, she tossed coins at the engine. And she did this so it would bring good luck for the flight. But even one small coin can cause enough damage to stop the engine mid-flight. So the plane was completely shut down. Then staff spent 4 hours inspecting and removing the coins from the engine, and the woman was taken away for questioning. If you jumped off a building into a giant paper plane, could you actually fly in it? Well, to make it big enough, you would need a piece of paper half the size of a football field. Each fold would be reinforced with metal strips, and you would need to soak it in resin to keep the paper stiff. To fly it, you would need a giant wire, pulling it into the air almost 100 miles an hour. If you were sitting on top, your weight would soon tip it forward. But for a few seconds, you would actually be able to fly. If your eyes point in different directions, a doctor will make a tiny cut in the thin covering of your eye. Then they'll lift the exposed muscles from the eyeball, moving them slightly to help your eyes line up straight. Once they're in the right spot, the doctor stitches the muscles firmly into place so they stay aligned. Finally, they close the tiny opening on your eye with small stitches that dissolve over time. And once it heals, your eyes stay aligned and point in the same direction. They took the enemy's bullet, carefully removed the gunpowder, and filled them with explosives that looked the same. When they fired, the pressure inside the barrel increased rapidly until it was more than the gun could handle. The rifle would burst apart, killing the shooter. And these fake bullets were planted one at a time into boxes of real ammo, meaning it looked like a random malfunction, not a sabotage. A clockwork motor slowly spins dozens of metal discs inside the doll's base. And as the grooves in each disc turn, they shift 3 metal rods back and forth. These connect to the doll's hand, with one controlling side-to-side movement and another controlling front to back. The last one raises and lowers the pen to form lines on paper, producing 3 different poems and 4 drawings in perfect detail. It would take giant tugboats a month of constant pulling to put the continents back together. Then you would need 6.5 quadrillion tons of superglue and enormous meteors slamming into it at incredible speed just to squeeze it out. The force would push the glue miles into the cracks, covering the edge of every continent for over 60,000 miles. And the water would make the glue set quickly, leaving you with a massive supercontinent. A stone was slowly placed across his lap, sitting on his knees. Now he was kneeling on a sharp wood slab with grooves that dug into his shins and ankles, and the stone forced his legs deeper into those grooves, grinding into the bone. Then another slab was added, and another. Each one crushed his thighs further, cutting off circulation and locking him in place. And they'd leave you there for hours until you confessed. If 1,500 bees swarmed in and stung you, and you weighed 150 pounds, the poison would quickly break down your muscles, releasing toxins into your blood. You see, 1 pound of body weight can only handle about 10 stings. Any more, and your kidneys would fail as they struggled to process it. At the same time, your body would release adrenaline, making your heart beat way too fast, and eventually you would have a heart attack and die. They injected the lottery balls with a tiny amount of paint, coating the inside and making them heavier than the others. And they did this to all of the numbers except 4 and 6. Next, they bought 15,000 tickets for all of the number combinations that used 4s and 6s. When the winning number was drawn, the paint-filled balls sank to the bottom, and 666 came out. Now, they did have the winning ticket, and they would have won almost $2 million, but they had told family and friends about the scam, and when word spread, it was exposed, meaning they got nothing except prison time. The grenade was launched at the soldier, hitting him right in the chest, but instead of exploding, it somehow lodged inside his body and stayed intact. Now, somehow he survived and was rushed to the hospital. If doctors treated the wound like normal, the electricity used to seal the blood vessels could detonate the bomb. Instead, he used only hand tools to pull out the live grenade, and somehow everyone survived. You could swallow a whole watermelon if your jaw worked like a snake's, but as it traveled down your throat, it would crush your windpipe, cutting off your air before it even reached your chest. Your esophagus isn't stretchy like a snake's, and the watermelon would slam into your lungs and heart. Even if it somehow reached your stomach, it wouldn't fit, meaning you wouldn't have the acid or enzymes to break it down. At that point, your only option would be to throw it back up, but forcing it out would cause just as much damage. They jack up the parked car, get underneath, and saw through the exhaust pipe. And in less than a minute, they get away with your catalytic converter. You see, this part is made of precious metals, which filter the smoke coming out of your exhaust. But these metals are actually worth more than gold, so thieves sell them to scrap yards for hundreds of dollars. Now, to stop this, some car owners paint them bright orange and engrave their license numbers onto the metal. This is supposed to stop scrap yards from buying them since it marks them as stolen, but many scrap yards still buy them anyway. The rooster had a knife tied to his leg and ran towards the man, slicing into his calf. You see, they were running away after police had caught them at a rooster fight. These birds are trained to fight and slice opponents during illegal matches. And in the chaos, one rooster sliced open the man's leg. It hit an artery and blood began pouring out. He was rushed to the hospital where he later died, but the rooster survived. The strip of metal was placed under the door of the poker machine, and the piano wire attached to the end was pulled tight to move the metal. This would bend it just enough to snake it into the payout chute, hitting a micro switch inside. This triggered the coin release, dumping them automatically. The scammer could earn $1,000 an hour, paying out one jackpot after another. But when the casinos caught on, the machine was redesigned, meaning the thief had to invent another tool. Slip the prisoner's hands through the loops and pull down on the ropes. Now this knot is made by creating the two loops, crossing them over, and pulling each one through the other. If the prisoner struggles, they'll only trap themselves more. But if they manage to pull out their shoelace, they can make a loop at each end and slip it through the rope. Then they can hook the loops over their shoes and lay on their back. And if they pedal with their feet, this causes friction. Eventually, it will cut through, setting them loose. If you crash into an electric pole and the line falls, you'll get electrocuted if you just step out of the car. That's because touching the car and the ground at the same time creates a circuit. This means the electricity will travel through the car and into your body as it tries to reach the ground. Instead, jump out with both feet together without touching the vehicle. Now, the ground around the car could still be active, and if you take regular steps, your legs could actually create another circuit. So keep your feet together, shuffle away slowly, and don't stop until you're far from the wires. If you were crushed with a hydraulic press, would it be strong enough to press you into a tiny cube? Well, your body is mostly made of water, and water can't be compressed. So you would have to remove all of the fluids by drying out completely. Then you'd have to grind up your bones and organs into fine powder. Finally, you could crush it all together, turning an entire human into a dense little cube about the size of a football. How big of a bomb would you need to completely destroy the Earth? Well, gravity is holding the Earth tightly together, with more energy than the sun puts out in an entire week. And a nuclear bomb wouldn't even come close to ripping that apart. You would have to build a bomb 2 miles wide and fill half of it with positive particles and the other half with negative particles. Then the impact would collide them against each other, and this would combine their energy, making an explosion big enough to blow the planet into dust. He puffs into a controller with 4 small tubes, and the character on the screen moves, meaning he plays the game only using his mouth. You see, he fell on his head and was paralyzed from the neck down, so now he uses a controller in his mouth to play. First, he chooses which tube to use. Then he sends different commands by either blowing air or lightly sucking the tube. So when he's ready to shoot, he puffs into the center tube and his gun fires on screen, using nothing but breath and precision. They crept towards the house, keeping their footsteps light so they wouldn't be heard, all to steal a bucket of poop. You see, in Japan, poop was really valuable. Farmers needed it as fertilizer, helping crops grow faster. And people even traded their poop in exchange for food. Eventually, human poop became so valuable that thieves risked getting caught just to steal it. They put the device on her grandma's finger because she wasn't feeling well. It pricked her skin, took a drop of blood, and scanned her fingerprint. Then it gave a number, 9.8. This was bad. You see, elderly people would take this new test. The lower numbers meant that you would die peacefully, maybe in your sleep years from now. But the high numbers, those meant a long, hard decline. So a pill was offered to those with high numbers. You would take it and pass peacefully in your sleep, skipping the years of anguish. They gave one to her grandma. Every night she'd sit at the kitchen table, pill in one hand, tea in the other. But she couldn't bring herself to take it. She felt okay. And over the next 6 months, her granddaughter noticed that nothing happened. So she started to do some research. She found some hidden files on the AI behind this test. she learned it had been altered. It wasn't predicting suffering. Insurance companies reprogrammed the AI to flag patients who would cost too much money as they aged. They weren't treating patients, they were eliminating expenses. She printed off her research and sped to her grandma's house to show her, but she couldn't find her. If an ant climbs up the side of a Klein bottle, it'll walk straight into the opening at the top. Inside, the surface twists and loops until the ant comes back out without ever crossing an edge. Now it's upside down on what looks like the inside. It keeps walking, following the curve until it's right back where it started. That's because this bottle has no real inside or outside. It's made of just one continuous surface that twists through itself. So the ant moving along it never switches sides, because there are no sides to begin with. The intruder grabbed the handle and started to open her bedroom door. So she grabbed a gun and fired straight through it. The bullet hit the man in the chest, but when she opened the door, she saw her own husband holding a breakfast tray. You see, he had unexpectedly come home from work to surprise her, but she thought he was a burglar. He was taken to the hospital, but the bullet somehow missed all major organs, and he fully recovered. He cut open Albert Einstein's skull and stole his brain during the autopsy. Next, he sliced it into hundreds of pieces, hoping to unlock the secret of his genius. Over the next 50 years, pieces of the brain was stored in basements, closets, and even car trunks. He gave some pieces to other doctors and researchers, and others were donated to a museum. But large chunks of Einstein's brain are still out there missing to this day. The toys were filled with plastic pellets, and each one came with a heart-shaped tag, stating the Beanie Baby's name and birthday. Now, people camped outside stores just to get the latest model. And because they were constantly discontinued, they became rare collectibles. Some invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, thinking their value would keep rising. And some people did make a lot of money selling them, but when too many people tried to cash out at once, demand collapsed, and their value plummeted, which is why you probably have an old stash of them in your attic. If you fell off a building, could a giant gummy bear save you? Well, for this to work, the gummy bear would need to be at least a few hundred feet tall and super thick. As you smack into it, the gummy would absorb the impact, but you would punch straight through the surface, sinking into the sticky gelatin, and breathing would be impossible, meaning you would be trapped deep inside until you suffocated. He licked the cold train track to see what would happen. The moisture on his tongue froze solid in seconds, fusing it to the rail. And when he tried to pull back, his tongue stretched but wouldn't tear free. His friends panicked, trying to yank it off, but they saw a train headed straight for them. They waved their arms, screaming for it to stop as it rounded the bend. And the conductor managed to slam the brakes just in time. He jumped down with a cup of hot water and poured it on the boy's frozen tongue, melting him loose. The hoof is injected with chemicals to keep it from rotting before a slice is carefully cut out. Then the water and fats are replaced with a special fluid, and it's put into a vacuum tank with liquid plastic, which is sucked into each cell. In several weeks, the entire slice is turned into plastic, and when it's done, it's held in place with wires and needles, while a UV light hardens it. Finally, it's displayed at special exhibits around the world to show students the hoof's inner structure. The bird was stuffed inside the doll, and a head was placed on top. When the child picked it up, it would twitch and move. Even its beak would open and close. But as the bird struggled to escape, it would make the toy move, almost like it was powered by gears. Now, eventually, the bird would die, and the doll would turn into a coffin, holding the rotting corpse of the trapped animal. If a long strip was taped to a dollar bill and fed into a soda machine before making a selection, could the money be yanked back out in time to get a free soda? Well, modern vending machines scan the bill by shining lights onto the paper, and if it reflects off the tape in unexpected ways, the machine will reject the bill. But older machines would only check for the magnetic ink inside the bill, meaning it could be accepted and then yanked out, leaving credit on the machine while you save the $1 bill. But remember, this is stealing, and you would be a scumbag if you tried it. If you swab the microbes off of your skin and drop them into a jar of flour and water, they'll start to eat the sugars inside the flour. And as they break it down, they release carbon dioxide gas. Over a few days, the mixture will bubble up as more and more gas is released. Next, add more flour and water, kneading it together until you have dough. And when you bake it, you'll have your very own sourdough using your body's natural yeast. They crammed the 500-pound body inside the chamber and turned up the flames to cremate it. But as it began to burn, the massive amount of fat started to liquefy, and then it ignited. Chunks of burning fat launched up through the vent system, landing on the roof. This set the rubber material on fire, forcing workers inside to evacuate. And by the time firefighters arrived, the roof was engulfed in flames. He lines up the probe carefully and moves forward to lock it into the hose trailing from the plane. Then the probe's nozzle pushes against a valve on the hose. This creates a sealed connection between the planes. Then thousands of gallons quickly pump through the hose and into the fighter jet. And this fills the jet's tanks as the planes continue to fly in perfect formation. The bullet was shot and lodged into his chest. Now, doctors said it was too close to his heart and lungs to remove, so they just left it in. He grew up and raised a family with a bullet still inside of him, and it sat in his chest for decades without pain. But at age 85, while recovering from a car crash, he coughed, and the bullet came out after all these years. He was mad because he died in the game, so he researched the other gamer's identity. And after 7 months of stalking, he realized he lived just a few miles away. When he rang the doorbell, the man answered, and suddenly he pulled out a kitchen knife and stabbed the man in the chest. It missed his heart by less than an inch, and somehow the man survived. But the attacker spent 2 years in prison, all over a video game. She cut through his frostbitten foot using only scissors, and the man felt everything. When it was done, she kept the foot in a freezer, hoping to take it home and cover it in resin. You see, her family owned a taxidermy shop, and she planned to display the foot in the window with a sign that read, "Wear your boots, kids." When the man died, she tried to steal the foot, but the other nurses stopped her, and his foot was finally sent off with the body. One identical twin boards a spaceship, while the other stays on Earth. The spaceship then begins flying through space at the speed of light. Now, even though they would both feel time passing normally, the twin back on Earth would actually experience time faster. That's because time bends and stretches depending on how fast you're going. And the closer you get to the speed of light, the more time slows down. Meaning when the one twin returned, they would be younger than the other twin. Leeches were dropped into the glass bottles, each filled with rainwater and sealed with a narrow tube. Wires ran from those tubes to a small bell in the center. As a storm approached, the air pressure outside began to drop, and this caused the leeches to start to squirm, trying to get to higher ground. They crawled up through the tubes and hit a trigger made of whalebone, which pulled a wire and made a hammer strike the bell. And the more leeches that climbed, the more the bell rang, warning that a storm was approaching. He inhaled a seed while walking through a forest, not thinking anything of it. It was so small, it didn't even make him cough, but it settled deep in his lung. Over time, he started to feel pain in his chest, so he went in for a scan. Doctors spotted what looked like a tumor, but when they opened him up, they didn't find cancer. They found a small tree, nearly 2 inches long, growing inside his lung. It had taken root in the warm, moist tissue fed by his body instead of soil. The cameras scanned the cube's colors in real time using machine vision, and custom algorithms instantly calculate the most efficient moves to solve the cube. High-performance motors twist each side of it, with each turn lasting less than a millisecond, and the cube is completely solved in just a tenth of a second, 30 times faster than the fastest human. Meaning, if you try to watch it, it will look like it's being solved instantly. They stumbled onto a landmine, which blew off the soldier's leg. You see, they had run into a forgotten minefield from a completely different war, and even though it ended 17 years earlier, hundreds of mines had been left there. Now, they tried to stay still and call for a rescue helicopter, but as another soldier ran to help, he triggered a second mine, blowing off his own leg. Finally, the helicopter arrived, but as it hovered, the wind set off a third mine, which sent shrapnel into another soldier before they were finally rescued. If you dropped a basketball from the Empire State Building, it would only bounce back a few stories. But what if you wanted to bounce it all the way back to the top? Well, you would need a basketball 3 times the size of a hot air balloon. But since some energy is always lost, it would only bounce 80% of the way back up. To get it to reach the top, you would need a slingshot to add extra force. But if the angle was off even a little bit, it could launch sideways, crushing the Empire State Building. He was shot 3 times after a fight broke out in a bar, but each bullet headed towards a different part of his uniform. One slammed into the wallet, another hit his pistol belt, and the third struck the flashlight on his hip, shattering it. But the gear managed to absorb the impact, and all 3 bullets were stopped. He walked away with only minor injuries. They dipped the matchsticks into a white phosphorus paste to make the matches, breathing in the fumes as they worked. Soon, they developed toothaches. Then, their gums began to swell, and eventually, pus oozed from their jaws. You see, the phosphorus was eating their bones from the inside out, until chunks of their jaw died and fell away. The dead bone even glowed faintly in the dark. If the dead parts weren't removed, the infection spread, killing the girls slowly and painfully. If Yellowstone erupts, the explosion will be bigger than 100 nuclear bombs. It would spew out enough lava that every town within 50 miles would be erased. Ash would fill the skies, blocking out the sun across the entire country. Without it, crops will fail, animals will die, and humans will starve to death. Now, there are actually 12 of these supervolcanoes spread across the Earth. And if just 2 went off at the same time, it would be enough to end the entire human race. He gulped down a live goldfish in front of a crowd as a dare. A few weeks later, someone else said they could swallow 24 of them, and eventually, the record hit 101 goldfish in one go. The stunt made headlines, and students across the country were swallowing live goldfish to outdo each other. But animal rights groups protested, while doctors warned of tapeworms, and a state senator even proposed a law to protect the fish. By the end of spring, the craze faded, but for a brief moment, swallowing goldfish was the ultimate college dare. The rooster is placed under a bowl with garlic rubbed on the back, and suspects are told it'll crow if the thief touches it. Each person enters the room and touches the bowl. As they leave, the trickster smells each person's hand. If it reeks of garlic, they touched the bowl, so they're probably innocent. But if one hand smells like nothing, that person never touched the bowl because they were afraid the rooster would give them away, meaning the thief is exposed without the rooster doing anything. Her hand got stuck inside the Easy Bake Oven while it was still turned on, and the heating element inside burned her finger. She finally managed to pull it out, but the burn was so severe that doctors had to amputate her finger. Now, this happened because the toy was redesigned, replacing the light bulb inside with an actual heating element. But after hundreds of children were injured, the oven was recalled. The paper cylinder rotates, showing pictures of a horse through slits on the side. But when it spins fast, it looks like the horse is running. That's because your eyes still see the first image before the next one quickly replaces it. And this creates the illusion of motion. Today, instead of cylinders, screens now show dozens of pictures every second. Your eyes blend those fast-moving frames into what looks like smooth, continuous motion, but it's essentially the same idea. The premature babies were put in glass boxes and displayed at the carnival, and millions of people would pay just to look at them. Diamond rings were slipped over their arms to show just how tiny they actually were. But these boxes were actually early incubators, pumping warm air inside. They kept the babies healthy as they struggled to survive, and the carnival show actually saved more preemies than the hospitals did. They cut into her face to tighten loose skin around her cheeks and eyes. You see, she had flown overseas for the surgery because it was cheaper. But when she arrived, the clinic was in a hospital's basement. And after the operation, they wrapped her up and sent her home the same day. But her scars didn't heal correctly, and they pulled her skin too tightly. This stretched her eyelids, preventing them from closing all the way. Now she lives with dry, burning eyes that water constantly, and they'll never fully shut again.
আমার যখন টাকা পয়সা আর যদি না পারো তাহলে কি হবে বলো?
এই মুখ আর জীবনেও দেখাবো।
এই তুমি আমাকে স্যার কেন বলো? আমি কিভাবে তোমার স্যার?
আব্বা তো ওকে দেখতেছে, কিন্তু ও আব্বাকে খেয়াল করে নাই। জাস্ট আব্বাকে বাসায় এসেছি।
ও তাই নাকি? তানিয়া আপনার কে হয়? এক দাবি। তানিয়া ভাবি, আপনি কবে হইবেন এলাকার ভাবি?
ভালোবাসি।
আমরা মানুষের কাছে ভিক্ষা করি না, মানুষের কাছে সুন্দর করে চাপ।
এই তুই কে? হ্যাঁ, সেলিম ভাইকে ভালোবাসার? আমি হচ্ছি সেলিম ভাইয়ের দলের।
আপনার মেয়ে যাবে না স্যার?
না, আমার মেয়ে যাবে না, আমি একা যাব। এই সেলিম, তুমি কই যাও? ও যে তোকে রিকশায় করে নিয়ে গেল।
আমি এলাকায় না থাকলে এলাকার লোকজন তো হাহাকার করে মরে যাইব। ভালোবাসার শত্রু। আপনি তানিয়ারে বলবেন ওর মন পাইতে আমি এই 7 দিন খালি খাবি আর চিন্তা করবি। আমি
তানিয়া, তুই কি ওকে বাসায় ডেকে আনবি?
জীবনেও না, কোনোদিনও না।
আরে তুমি ওর সাথে এভাবে কথা বলছো কেন? ও যদি শুভর সাথে ভালো থাকে, থাক না।
ভাবছিলাম তুই ভালো হয়ে যাবি, কিন্তু তুই মাল কোনোদিন ভালোই হবি না। যে খারাপ তারে ভালো বানানো যায়, আর যে চাই
বুঝাচ্ছি বিপরীতে কাছাকাছি সময় রং হয় বিলীন।
টেনশন করেন না, আপনাকে আমি বেশিক্ষণ রাখবো না, ধরেন 3-4 ঘন্টা হয়তো ম্যাক্স।
মা এক সেকেন্ড দাঁড়াও, ফোন দিচ্ছি।
আমরা তো কিছুই জানি না কি সমস্যা, শুধু শুধু ছেলেটাকে এইভাবে বলো না তো।
তুমি চুপ করো।
আবেগ হচ্ছে করুণ শহর
পারবে না।
বিশ্বাস করো, আমি আর কখনোই যাব না। আমি কেন ডিভোর্স নেব? 15 লক্ষ টাকা মানে কি তুমি?
মায়ার বাঁধনে বেঁধেছি মন
ঝামেলা শেষ করো। আরে ভাই সাইন করো।
এটাও কিন্তু ইম্পর্টেন্ট। মানে ভালোবাসা হচ্ছে একজন আরেকজনের উপর ভরসা করে। কি করছো?
তেমন কিছু না, এই যে ছাদে দাঁড়িয়ে আছি। তুমি?
আমি তো
মানে কি বলতেছো মা তুমি এগুলো? মনে বুঝিস না, এই ছেলে তো যাবে না।
আমি কিছু মাথায় নিচ্ছি না, তুমি কি বলতে চাও সেটা বলো।
করি এরকম অপেক্ষা আমি কতদিন করব বলো?
প্রতিদিন কই সব
তবু যাচ্ছি বিপরীতে কাছাকাছি।
বাবা বলতেছিল যে আমার তো বিয়ে করছে প্রায় 1 বছর হয়ে গেল। আমি আসতেছি।
আমারে বলতেছো
তুই আমার ধরবি না।
এই আর কি বলো, আমি বলে তোমাকে জানাবো।
ঠিক আছে বাবা।
তুমি যাচ্ছ বিপরীতে।
এই শৈলী, এই শৈলী, অ্যাড্রেস বলো, অ্যাড্রেস বলো।
সরে যাচ্ছি বহু দূরে।
গ্রেট অ্যানাউন্সমেন্ট, আমি এবং শৈলী আজকে বিয়ে করব।
এর দিনমোহরের 15 লক্ষ টাকা আপনাকে পরিশোধ করে দিতে হবে।